What do you mean? What do we mean when we say authenticity, or to live authentically, to live an authentic life? What do you see in the context of spirituality?
What I see is that very often we mistake what we know with what we are expressing through our being. So sometimes there is a little discrepancy between our understanding of truth and our expression. And by expression I mean everyday living, you know, the way in which we are with our family, with our friends, in our work, in our everyday life. And this journey towards authenticity and authentic expression of ourselves, this like being ourselves, passes through an embodiment of what we know. It's a journey, in a sense, from a clarity that maybe we reached to the heart, where we match in the heart, through the heart, ourselves. And it's a beautiful journey, because it's a journey in which slowly we abandon what we know, where we gather even beautiful informations that were very useful to discern between what is true and what is not. And this clarity gets bathed, in a sense, in the mystery, in the unknown, in life that is so unpredictable, so raw, so innocent. Is a journey of a lifetime. In a sense, becoming authentically ourselves, it asks all our life. It's a never-ending process of transcending and also embodying. So transcendence and immanence. And I think is a quality, honesty, that together with courage is maybe the most important for somebody that is seeking for truth, has this thirst for truth. Sometimes we don't know, we are not aware that we're not living up to what we have understood. And then very kindly life, that is the Divine Mother, shows us through the circumstances of our everyday life. It shows us how, in a sense, we sometimes have gaps. We have blind spots. We have strategies of compensations. It's not about perfection. It's about loving the imperfection. It's not about, you know, like living up to a standard. It's more like really meeting authentically what we know is true in our heart and let it be expressed by us. And when we, you know, fall on something, when since we are like stumbling on something, taking that as an opportunity of further embodiment. So it's more like loving the imperfection from the authentic perfection of the heart. Because the heart, the spiritual heart, that is not an emotion, it's our true being. It's the emptiness contemplating the form. It's exquisitely neutral. So the heart doesn't know anything about perfection or imperfection. It doesn't choose. And I think this is the doorway to fully expressing through our humanity, our divinity, to become, you know, what we love.
I love the heart is neutral. The heart has no preference, or doesn't exclude anything. And can you say something, like in your work with groups and with people, how do you guide them when they meet those places how do we meet the places where we feel challenged, where we feel uncomfortable, and where actually true embodiment happens. These are the places where we haven't met fully ourselves.
Well, we know when there is suffering because we contract. And sometimes those contractions are covered with a lot of thinking, a lot of stories that hide these contractions. But, you know, deep inside we know when we are challenged, when we're trying to protect ourselves. And what I invite people to do is to meet those difficulties, you know, I know it's a bit of an old-fashioned word, but in the goodness of the heart. When we were kids, we were living from this innocence, this inherent goodness, that it has nothing to do with good and bad, you know, because shadow can be an incredible source of transformation, an incredible resource, because it's in meeting our shadows that from that mud we can blossom in our Buddhahood, in a sense, the lotus flowers from the mud. So what I invite people to do is to contemplate themselves, the me, those old structures, those protections, from this seeing. As I say, the heart is emptiness contemplating the form. In a sense, is the place of true meditation. Ramana Maharshi spoke a lot about it, the spiritual heart. He used to say, the spiritual heart is everywhere. This understanding, this energy must come down and rest in the heart. It is crucially important. And it's a doorway of transformation of what we call shadow, what we call ignorance. The same energy appearing as ignorance, the same, comes back to emptiness through the heart. And then that same energy can be emanated again as, in a sense, in line, aligned with, let's call it the divine plan, or the true characteristic of our form, our natural expression. I would like to express a bit better what I mean. I feel there are two things that in human life we really want. The first one is that we want to be free and we want to know what love is. And in my experience, this emptiness, this place of no separation is love, is the background of all, is the place where we all one. And is the place out of which we can be free, not from life, but free to meet life as it is. And the second thing is we want to be ourselves. This is particularly true of young people, and I meet many young people actually in my work. We want to bring this that we know is true in the body, in our life, you know, and share it with our community, whatever is our community. Now, what seems to be in the way of expressing this that we are in our life, and so to be ourselves, is exactly all these protections, all these strategies, all these compensations. So this unmasking, you know, the word persona that means mask, is unmasking and live from the authenticity of the heart, is done not by the person, is consciousness itself that meets this as life unfolds. So this desire to be ourselves, this desire to be free from these structures that seem to interrupt the natural flowing of ourself, our radiance, needs to be met in the heart, transcended, and then that energy will be available again to be expressed as us. So sometimes I use this expression, from what we are, we become who we are. And I feel that especially nowadays, with all the challenges that we live, you know, with this global crisis that is everywhere in our, you know, in our planet, in our society, on any level of our society, we're really called in embodying what we know is true. It's a social call, it's an ecological call, It's a spiritual call, it's a human call. It's, otherwise, you know, our spiritual life tends to be separated from our humanity.
And these days we use the word embodying so much, so I would like to hear how do you, in which context, how do you see what is embodiment in your work? How do you see that?
Sometimes I feel that it's used to explain a kind of psychological process that is not exactly the way in which I intended. The way in which I intended is more mystical in a sense, it's more impersonal. I use a metaphor to explain what I mean. The base of our being is an eternal sun that radiates itself in endless rays. Each ray is one with the sun. And each of these beautiful beams is the forms, is the beings that you see in this universe. So each ray has a different quality, has a different expression, and is radiating from the source continuously, endlessly. And in his expression, in his irradiating, this radiation of the source into manifestation, something that creates manifestation in the same moment, because it's a process of being that is also creating. The two things coincide. Yeah? In this process of expression, we are projecting also all the false images that we gathered about ourselves. And those false images are very impersonal. There is not a me that has a me. It's impersonal. It's a false impression that is impressed in the manifestation. So as you, me, you know, consciousness live this expression called to be ourself, we meet this false impression. And at that point, it's possible, if we look back at the source of what we are, emptiness, stillness, void, to reabsorb what is false and to re-emanate it as what we truly are. So if we use the body as a map of our cosmic body, that is the universe, our true body, we could say that our dormant spiritual energy that is in this, at the base of our spine, and is depicted in the Indian tradition as a poisonous snake, raise up, our energy raise up. What is Kundalini? What is this energy? Well, this energy that is Shakti is everywhere. But when it passes through the body, we call it Kundalini. This energy rises, is our call for truth. All the time that we say, I want to know what is that I am. I want to know what life is. I want to know love. I want to know freedom. That energy is called to wake up in us and can rejoin on a certain point, opens certain gates, certain blocks, certain knots. It travels through us, moves us, remove obstacles, and then rejoin with the beloved. When we are thirsty for the eternal life of the beloved, you know, and that energy is meeting the beloved, then the lover of truth and the beloved become one consciously. And there is only love, there is only loving. And that is this experience of the disappearance of the false impression to be a somebody. And this is what we call awakening. In my perspective, this awakening is simply the beginning of a journey. Yeah? Because this ignites, really ignites, a process very impersonal that does us. We don't do it. And in this process, we redescend in the heart. We meet this emptiness. We rejoin the form with the emptiness. Emptiness is form and form is emptiness. And this spiritual energy can go to rest in the heart, in the spiritual heart. And we sweep away, or better, we are swept away in all the residues of this false impression I spoke before. It's a process of purification that very often happens after awakening than before. Because you see, you have to remember that before awakening, we would take that purification as personal. It will be the me working on the me. Where instead, when the sense of separation goes away, we will watch the impulse of being a bee coming back. I think this is the experience of many seekers. They have been having an opening, and then they see the sense of separation arising again and again and again. And if you don't buy into it, if you remain steady in this seeing, then it can be transformed, it can be dissolved. So at that point, this energy descends in the heart, and the human and the divine meet in this sense. And sometimes in this process of embodiment, and it's been quite rare until now, but I believe we live in a time in which this will happen more. This energy goes even more down in the Hara, in the Mother. The Divine Father penetrates in the Divine Mother. And at that point, this process involves the physical body. And it's this process of purification that has been clearing our conditioning, our emotion, goes deeper and make us become a bodily expression of the divine.
I love how you described, I don't want to call it stages because it's not linear, correct? But yet you described that it goes from the transcendence to the heart, to the Hara. Is this what you see? Can it be in different order, the awakening in the body? Is this the order, or you?
In my experience, this is the order. Sometimes we have an opening of this chakra, and we can exchange the opening of this chakra as the process I'm describing. Unless we have been waking up to the recognition of what we are, and we cannot descend here without passing from the heart. But it's true that people can experience an openness of this center anyway. It's not exactly the same of the process I described though. In fact, you speak about 3 awakenings in a sense, a process, and I'm not the only one speaking about it. I know Aurobindo speaks about it. I heard Adyashanti speaks about it. Osho apparently spoke about it. It's a process of meeting the immanence from the transcendence. So if you don't know transcendence as yourself, you cannot meet the form from the transcendence. This does not mean that you cannot have like experience of opening of these centers. They are vital center, vital, and they're often very contracted, you know. Our creative expression is very contracted. Our sexual energy can be very repressed and conditioned. So absolutely, you can have experience of openness of this center. But in my experience, at least, and in what I've been also studying, this is the order in which it happens, like rising and then descending. Very often in our spirituality, think about, you know, also like our religion in the West, in Christianity spoke about it. There's been a misunderstanding, you know, as the body is something dirty and that has to be separated from us, and creating a lot of repression, a lot of dissociation. In my understanding, the heart, the body is our most profound part in a sense, because it's the emanation, is the expression of the divine. So the body can become the laboratory of this divine game. And what I feel is that we know very little of the potential of our body. We have many bodies. The physical, the one I'm speaking about now is the physical bodies, of course. And the physical body is the ultimate expression, is a miracle, is emptiness becoming solid, is void that becomes human. Now, when we can meet the body consciously from emptiness, We are consciously participating to the process of creation. The hara is a very important center, as you know, very important, is the center of our human expression. Imagine these bodies as babies linked to the divine cosmic mother through the heart. So when you experience this hara, also before awakening, you feel this centered, you feel nourished by the mother. The process I'm specifying now is a process of meeting this from the Divine Father, so meeting it from emptiness. And this, you know, is the divine child. We are the children of God, literally, we are.
And just want to clarify one aspect.
Yeah.
When you say meeting, it's not something we can do, correct?
No.
This is kind of it's grace, or it's a.
It's all done by divine grace. At the same time, when we say divine grace, sometimes we think that divine grace is like, you know, a funny force that maybe will make us win the lottery of awakening and maybe not, and feel lucky, you know, we get it. Instead, it's divine grace, as you know, is always present, always. It's always here. And it's called life. So it's through life that we meet this.
So that movement is orchestrated by life. It's not that I can decide to drop and experience this, right? It's not the separate self that can envision this movement of embodiment, the dropping down.
The movement is called My Life as It Is, with all its difficulties, with all its crises, is the way in which I, the eternal I, meet myself in the form. First, recognize what you are. First, find this silence that is what is watching through your eyes. In this moment, people watching this video, you know, they can use my face. This is my face. And look back to you. You know, look back where you're doing the looking. And immediately you will be recognizing silence, emptiness, stillness. From this stillness, contemplate the word. Meet the word. If you don't do it from emptiness, you will be identifying yourself. And this process of purification, I explained, cannot happen because you will be simply identifying with emotions and with thoughts and feelings. So first, come back to emptiness. And from this transcendence, meet the word, meet yourself. When I say meet, you know, there is a beautiful expression in the Bible that is used for speaking about a man meeting a woman, you know, like when people know each other in the biblical sense. In a sense, it's similar, you know. When is the way in which you know something really? Is when you meet it in yourself as yourself. So when I am contemplating the word from this emptiness, I am meeting it in myself as myself. And this is something of incredible power. It looks like you're not doing anything at all, but you're resting at the base of manifestation and you are redreaming yourself. You're redreaming the dream of the word. It's incredible practical, very down to earth.
Redreaming the world. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Can you just...
You see, we are, the life that we experience is the embodiment of consciousness. I'm not the first one saying this, you know, many traditions says it, but do we dare really to see it? Do we really see that our life as it is the perfect expression in details of the way in which we know ourselves or in the way in which we are ignorant about ourselves? So when we are ignorant about ourselves, this projection of life will be reflecting this ignorance. That's why it's life that challenges us in the process of embodiment. Do we really want to be what we know is true? Can we be at service of that? So when the dream of the word is emanated through this unconsciousness. When this ignorance is contemplated from truth, that is stillness, is void, is emptiness, is what is always true, it doesn't change, it's Shiva consciousness, then that energy can be re-expressed again. At that point, it's not going to be reflecting the ignorance that we dissolved. So the world will be redreamed in that way. And let's not think that it's going to happen once and then stays like that. It's a continuous process of creation. Creation is still happening. We have this funny idea like creation happened billions of time ago and now we're just watching the movie. It's not like that at all. Creation happens in every instant. In every instant, this appears and disappears. In a sense, nothing ever happened, ever. And at the same time, it's happening continuously. So,
and not opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Being and creating is not, it's one movement.
Being is creating, exactly. So in this appearance, life is continuously, I would say with devotion, expressing ourself. That expression is the mother. Life is the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is continuously dancing us, not just as forms, but also as our true self, is the expression of our true self. So if our true self doesn't know itself, your life will show it. That's why we have to be devoted to life. That's why life is the real guru, from darkness to light, guru. When we are able to meditate life, then life will appear differently. Not just, and this is the very beautiful, I want to address it, not just for our apparent personal life, but for all that is around us. Our enlightenment enlightens the world, for real. This power, this light of creation, is continuously radiating and appearing as what we see.
So we've been created, we've been danced, and yet we are also creating.
Yes.
It's so beautiful. I just want to stay with this for a moment because...
Yeah. You see, we are simultaneously... You see, the divine, fell so much in love with its own creation that decided to experience it from within. And that is the human form. We are a spiritual being that is having a human experience. Now, if the spiritual being doesn't know itself, it will create anyway, but that creation will be tainted by the ignorance. If this spiritual being knows itself, that creation will be emanating the glory of the divine. Now, our true self, as you know, remain anyway untainted, pristine, untouched. But we want to meet it in the Word. That's why we have a form. It's not enough knowing that we are nothingness. It's not enough knowing that we are silence. We want to live it. We want to experience it. We want to celebrate it. That's the invitation. So transcendence is necessary, important, primordial, and is our starting point towards a life that belongs to what we really are. That is a life that is full of meaning. Sometimes, as I said, I meet many young people, and some of them are very sad because we live in a world that is really crumbling, all these structures are crumbling, and they say, what can I believe in? I cannot believe anymore in anything. True, but also beautiful, because you cannot hold on to anything in a sense. It's an invitation to let go. And yet, when you don't see this beauty of silence, this crumbling make you experience sometimes a sense of desperation, meaninglessness, hopelessness, helplessness. That is very real, you know. I want to say something. You know me a bit, but I want to say to people that might watch this interview, I'm not sitting here, you know, speaking about transcendence and immanence, and I don't know the struggle of very ordinary people. I'm a very ordinary person. So I know that sense of desperation and lack of meaning in your life, you know, can be terrible. At the same time, it's a resource. That meaninglessness guides you to find a meaning not in the word. That helplessness is an invitation to let go. That hopelessness is an invitation to stillness. If we can take that invitation, we can transform this global crisis in a renaissance. And I think this is what is really happening. Even if it looks, you know, dark and difficult, that's the invitation.
And can you say something? Are your teachings evolving? Do you see a shift or an evolution in the way you teach, or what you see is coming?
It's interesting. When I saw this, firstly in 2003, I saw the same time I'm seeing now.
In 2003?
In 2003 I woke up, or at least waking up happened for the first time, because it is a continuous waking, you know? And what I see is the same thing. All this is a dance of the self. There is no body in the form that is separated. All this manifestation is a dance of emptiness. And yet, let's call my ability, although it's not personal, it's the ability of consciousness through this form, to know this, to be this, to embody this, is tremendously different. And it changes all the time. We change all the time. I want to say, you know, something about evolution, not just of this teaching, but of people. Sometimes we feel we fail, you know, we fail to match up to what we feel is important. And since we do mistakes and we fall, I would like to say that those errors, those mistakes, are really the way in which we learn. You know, the way in which we learn to walk is falling and scratching our knees. But the way in which you can evolve passes through that falling, passes to those ups and downs. So let's meet our life and our evolution, you know, in this life, not as something we have to arrive to, not as a destination. It's a journey. Ultimately, as I say, we are already this. We are already saved. We are already free. We are already love. But this love wants to know itself in the form. So to do that has to meet all these polarities, good, bad, right, wrong, you know, and dissolve them. And then emanate them again. So evolution, I'm saying it because evolution is not towards perfection. Evolution is a process of inclusion. It's a spiral in the stillness of inclusion. And we are able to include more and more and more. It's not, you know, I'm little and I become a lot. It's more like this, including more.
And that's perhaps the maturation on the spiritual path. This is really what, after the initial awakening, it's the ever unfolding awakening.
Yeah.
We call evolution.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the spiral is an incredible shape that exists in all manifestation, isn't it? Galaxies, shells. It's a spiraling that is deepening and is including. It's very beautiful. Yeah. There is a story I would like to tell you, to say to people, maybe they don't know, I don't know, is the story of Bodhidharma, an incredible sage, that is met by the emperor. And the emperor asked to Bodhidharma about sacred scriptures, and he says, they're full of lies. They cannot describe the truth. And the emperor remains very, hit by this reply by somebody that is considered very holy and very wise, and say to the Bodhidharma, so who is the man that is saying this? And Bodhidharma replied, I don't know. It's a fantastic reply. That is a reply of spiritual maturity. Is sinking in the mystery so much that you don't know anymore anything because you are it.
There's the answer of the heart. The
Yes.
mind always knows, but the heart,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to know.
Doesn't need to know because it's in being. In being, everything, the heart, includes any contradiction, any relative truth. They all meet in the heart. Of course, living from the mystery is a bit scary, but that's also the fun part. When we were kids, we were calling fear excitement. So let's get excited again.
What can our intimate relationships teach us on the path of awakening,
Yeah.
on the spiritual path? Yeah.
Well, relationships, it's a hot fire, and is one of the places where life challenges the most in really expressing the truth of what we are. A relationship is not done by two or more people. A relationship is the expression of what we are. So what we call ourself and the other persons involved, or the other person involved, is the expression of our true being. As we learn to stay in a space of true meditation and contemplation of the form, we learn to meditate our relationship. And we will see how the dynamics that involve the people are simply a reflection of patterns of ignorance that is inside of us. As we dare to meet those patterns in ourselves, without blame, without guilt, without pointing fingers, but really, bringing back in the heart what we meet in our relationships, then our relationship can become an incredible place of transformation. Otherwise, they become a place of compensation, of escape.
Battlefield.
Yeah, or battlefield.
Right.
But even when arguments are involved, they're not necessarily bad. They are the way in which we know ourselves.
If we can meet them consciously.
Yes. So yes, any kind of relationship, not just intimate. It's in any kind of relationship. Our family, our job. We continuously meet ourselves in other forms. That's it.
The mirrors of ourselves.
Yeah. And it's either mirroring the image, the me, or is mirroring the true self. Ultimately, there is nobody in anybody but the true self. So if we can take our life as it is in every aspect and meet it in the heart, we can use life as a sadhana, as a spiritual practice. Our everyday life becomes our spiritual practice, becomes the place in which we can dissolve this false impression and be consciously what we are, be divine in human form.
I love that. It's not any complicated special technique that we have to use and practice. It's just
I agree, it's very simple.
Provides moment to moment.
Yeah.
The practice we need.
Yeah, I have nothing against practices and technique. They can be extremely useful and important. But ultimately, life, the Divine Mother, is the Guru. She's teaching us every day. Thank you, Zaya.
Thank you.
It's a real
Thank you,
pleasure.
Shakti.
Thank you. Thank you.